We have made it through the end of day one. We are finally about to wrap up with our last fireside chat of the day. Please welcome to the stage Emma Joyce and Natasha Cazenave.
Hello, good afternoon. Delighted as ever to be back in Paris, one of my very favourite cities in the world. And I was just saying a minute ago, it's always sunny when I come here, so thank you, Paris. Delighted to be speaking to Natasha today. Natasha is the Executive Director of ESMA. I'm really excited to dive a bit deeper into their work and find out what is going on. So let's start. So we are a little more than 1 year into the implementation of MiCA. From ESMA's perspective, what are the biggest challenges so far in harmonising implementation across the member states? Are you seeing gaps between regulatory intent and the realities of the crypto asset market in Europe?
Checking. Is this working? Yes, it's working. Sorry, thanks, Emma, and very nice to be here. I was telling her she should come more often to have more sun in Paris, definitely. But it's a pleasure to be speaking before you today. To answer your question, I think we've really come a long way. But the key word I would like people to keep in mind from an ESMA perspective, where we are here and now, is working together with national authorities. We're still very much in that phase of bringing national supervisors together, looking at practical business models together, making sure we have the same assessment. If you look back a little bit, the first step was defining the MiCA regulation, how it should be implemented. So there was a lot of what we call policy work, and so the initial work, the standards, how to implement, that is behind us now, and we move to convergence. In our language, supervisory convergence, which is trying to make sure that when we look at a business model, we analyze it in the same way, we see the same risks, and so wherever you are in the union, you come to a regulator, you get the same answer, which was not a given for a new industry, for a new area, for supervisors, so it's been very challenging. Where we are today is at the gate. So the focus has been this past year on licensing, and that has helped us make sure we were completely aligned. So we put out some guidance on the shareholder book, on the opinion on the broker model. We put a lot of information out there to clarify. And we focused on the largest operators to make sure that we had that sort of coverage of those that have a pan-European footprint. Two other messages. One is that we come from a situation of quite significant fragmentation, right? There were national regimes in different areas. In some areas, there was no national regime. There were different transitional periods, different ends, and that has created a lot of complexity in how this regime came into force. And so a challenge, again, work together, make sure we have the same understanding and the same messages out there to the market. And the message I want to leave you with is that now we are reaching the end of that period of transition. And so what does that tell us? It is important that those who don't get a license in time make sure that they have wind-down programs to make sure that the clients are transferred or that there's a sound process to offboard them. We need to make sure that if you have a license, you onboard the clients to the right entity. So we need to make sure that that is done in a meaningful way, and so that is really what we are focusing on now. So from the gate to the end of the transition.
Thank you, and I think that is industry and markets' favourite word, actually, convergence, which you mentioned earlier, so important and really what everyone is looking for. Does central supervision of CASPs by ESMA, as proposed in the MISP legislation, help to solve some of the challenges with MiCA's implementation, do you think?
So what we have seen, and which is actually quite a normal development, is that when you have a set of rules and different national supervisors, it's just a natural thing that the way it is interpreted will diverge. And we've had that in other legislation, so we knew that this was likely to happen. We see just from the start also with the way the transition regimes were identified. So what can European supervision bring? It brings one answer to one question immediately, so it's more efficient. You have a faster time to market in how this happens. You have clear standards across the board. So it does bring some efficiency. And that is something that has been supported actually by our board. So the 27 national supervisors have supported the idea that at least for some, it would make sense. It also makes sense if you think of entities that cut across multiple markets. They are at least European and most of the time global players, and therefore not having to knock on different doors makes it actually quite efficient. So it does go a long way, we hope, to make sure that both for the market participants and from a supervisory perspective, we are more efficient in how we can capture risks and implement.
Thank you. Can you talk us through a little bit about what industry's role is in the policy-making process, please?
Yes, so one thing that we find very interesting when we look at the crypto market is we had to sort of get to know each other somehow as a community of a market that was not used to regulation, similar to the way that we have financial entities that are used to engaging with the supervisors, and the same for national supervisors for whom they were not national interlocutors because it's a new novel industry, maybe not so novel now, but at least when the regulation was developed. And so just as in other industries, but I would say even more so in the crypto space, was very important to make sure we set up from the start a structured dialogue, being able to understand what are the needs, what are the challenges, what is different, what is not, being able also to be very clear on the expectations from a supervisory perspective. So what does it mean to go through licensing? What are we expecting? And I think that has been a bit of a process. And then there will be more, and we continue to do that. I just want to reiterate how open we are to make sure we have those dialogues and understand what are the challenges and what are the needs. And there will be a new opportunity because, as you know, the European Commission has announced that it will revisit the MiCA framework and might launch soon a consultation for MiCA 2.0. And that will be another opportunity for one of those structured engagements where you can have a formal dialogue on what you think needs to be improved or changed in the framework.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So how does ESMA think about regulating technologies that it knows will evolve faster than the relevant rules can adapt?
So I think that's probably the theme of the year, maybe. Certainly the past few years, what we've seen, and it's not specific to crypto, it's specific to the world we're living in, where we see the pace of innovation, the pace of new technologies coming, the pace of change in general is really accelerating. And so collectively, but it's also true in our private lives, we just need to be able to adapt to this new reality. What does it mean for supervisors? And especially in Europe, we have this beautiful way of working where we coordinate, we consult, we engage, we discuss, we find compromises in different bodies, we have trialogues. We cannot do that overnight, so certainly not an on-chain 24/7 kind of discussion. But we do need to adapt. So what does that mean? We need to make sure at least that we have at least a dialogue, but also that we have mechanisms to make sure we remain on top of what's happening in the market, understand the trends, and that then we are able to be agile in adjusting where needed. So it is a continuous analysis of what is happening in the market, so we sort of look ahead and are able then to adjust where needed to make sure that the regulatory framework remains fit for purpose.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, this is a question that I actually get asked a lot, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How important is global regulatory alignment in the market for crypto assets, and is it even feasible or achievable?
That is a good one. So when we started on this journey, we felt a bit lonely in Europe. And I remember a delegation of US policymakers coming to engage with us to understand what we were trying to do and discuss from all sides of the aisle to try and discuss and understand what we were trying to do here. I think really the discussion has moved on, and we see a lot of initiatives that we also take inspiration from in other places. In general, as for any activity, it is desirable to have at least a consistency on the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, that we have a similar way of looking at the risks and a similar way of trying to contain them or regulate. And then, of course, there are differences. There have always been differences. And so for global players, desirable consistency in outcomes and certainly at least sharing experiences, using the international forums that we have, IOSCO, Financial Stability Board, discuss, understand, see where others are, learn from each other, and ideally reach a point where we have similar outcomes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any jurisdictions that you're watching or even taking inspiration from when it comes to digital asset policy?
Yes, so talking about the pace of change, certainly the US has pivoted quite significantly. So there is a lot to see there. So we are looking at the developments. We're monitoring what's happening there. Again, with our lens, so we're not starting from the same starting point, but it's very interesting to see how the discussion has developed in the US, what are the considerations, what discussions on Capitol Hill, so just trying to get that understanding. Also the market innovation that is coming from the US, driving also that dialogue with their own regulators is informative also for us, because they are discussing also developments that are coming through and what that challenge means for regulators, supervisors. So the US, certainly, we're also watching what's happening in the UK. It's also very interesting to understand what that means, especially for some of the cross-border activities where the players will come from different markets. And I think the last jurisdictions I would mention is certainly Singapore, where we saw their recent initiative that has been launched. And they've often been quite ahead, actually, in Singapore. And the Monetary Authority of Singapore is a great inspiration in general for anything that has to do with innovation.
Fascinating. That's really interesting. Thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule, Natasha, to come and talk to us today. We love hearing from regulators who are, working in the depths of this very difficult policy with this very quickly evolving industry. So really appreciate all the work you do for the industry. I am back tomorrow morning actually talking to European industry who are very positive about MiCA and everything that is happening in Europe with regulation. So it'll be interesting to hear the other side of it. Thank you once again to Paris Blockchain Week. Really is one of the best events out there. Thank you for having us. And I know we're keeping you from your dinners and your drinks tonight, so please enjoy, and we will see you back tomorrow.
Thank you.
Welcome to Signal Week.